This episode of the KiLLs podcast will be coming to you from the confinement of a gas mask because of the COVID virus. And before we proceed, fuck that, I'm not wearing this thing the whole time. There ain't no way in hell it's gonna happen. Didn't plan to anyway, but safety first, fuckers. It's the big talk. I ain't gonna get big into it. All I really want to say about it is, I kind of feel like the COVID virus is a worldwide pandemic of be careful what you wish for. People always say everyone said this. I wish I had more time. Wish I had more time to read that book or, watch that documentary or spend time with the kids, clean out the garage, work on the car, maybe do some yoga, start working out, learn how to cook, all of that shit. We've all said it one time or another. Now, a lot of us have that time. Listen to the KiLLs podcast. You know what I'm saying? Now we all have that time. Don't waste it. I mean, seriously, do something productive. If you're stuck, I really hope a lot of people take this time to do those things they wish they had the time for, even if it was just catch up on sleep. Wish you had time to catch up on sleep. Do it. Do what you wish you had the time to do. Try to do something productive for yourself. Be nice to each other. And help someone out when you can, but don't just rely on other people. And that's about really all I'm going to say about it for this podcast and this intro. This episode, we do have a secretive service shout out. This comes from my friend Jen, always a ponytail. She's a new hunter this year and killed her first deer. Pretty fucking epic to watch her from wondering how to pull a bow back to actually shooting one. And good shit. But she sent in the secretive service shout out, and I'm just going to read it directly in her words. I'd like to give a secretive service shout out to KiLLs Brown. She has been a client of mine for about 5 years, and I have watched her volunteer countless hours to the Guide Dog Foundation and America's Vet Dogs. KiLLs started out as a voluntary puppy raiser for the Guide Dog Foundation. She didn't have any formal training, but as a dog trainer, wanted to make a difference. When you are a puppy raiser, you don't have to train the puppies at home. You have special classes to attend. You also have the puppy everywhere you go for additional socialization and training. KiLLs would take the puppy to the salon, the gym, the grocery store. You name it, the puppy was by her side looking for direction and training. Unfortunately, her first puppy had a bad skin allergy and wasn't accepted into the final stages of training for Guide Dog Foundation. She had the first right of refusal to adopt Chester, so of course he became a permanent family member and now helps training the new puppies. While training Chester, the Guide Dog Foundation knows she was very dedicated and excelled in his training. She was asked to become one of a handful of raisers for the new American Vet Dog Foundation in this area. Not only did KiLLs become a raiser, but she now helps train other puppy raisers on how to train their dogs for the Americans Vet Dog Foundation. She spends countless hours a week teaching groups of raisers in public settings as well as training her own pup. After about 16 months of training, KiLLs will give the puppy back to the America's Vet Dog Foundation, where the puppy will have additional training and meet his new forever family. Her dedication, selfless acts of giving, and courage are amazing, and we should all try to do our part in some way to help our veterans live normal lives. America's Vet Dogs was created to enhance mobility and renewed independence to United States veterans, active duty service members, and first responders with disabilities, allowing them to once again live with pride and self-reliance. Not only does a service dog provide support with daily activities, it provides the motivation to tackle everyday challenges. It takes about $50,000 to raise and place a service dog, which is no cost to the veteran. Funding comes from the generosity of individuals, corporations, foundations, business, and community organizations. Thank you, Jen, for sending this in, and thank you, KiLLs Brown, for your service. This is something that's highly needed, valuable, and probably underrated. I gave a similar secretive service shout out to Tyson Trunkhill with Retrieving Freedom. But anyone that has a dog, man's best friend. You know what it's like to have the companionship. And when you have someone or something, that you can connect with like that can help you be more self-reliant and deal with your daily tasks, but know something's also relying on you, it can help a lot. So this is a great service. Thank you, Chris Brown. Thank you, Jen, for sending that in. On this episode of the KiLLs podcast, I have on my buddy, Bob Dubuque, who is a veteran. And not only did he serve his time in the military, but he's still continuing to help veterans working for the VA. He is a pharmacist, and we get a little more into his title and exactly what he does in the podcast. And interesting as well, he is the pharmacy director for a local cannabis clinic. And we get into a little bit of everything from, hunting to politics to just bullshit to veterans to maybe even the COVID virus. Oh, shit. We get into a lot of different things, and we get into the cannabis. I wanted to talk more about the cannabis, I'll be honest, but I didn't want to lead him into any strange place of conversation. I wasn't sure what exactly he could talk about and how he could talk about it. But, this was a lot of fun, and it did stay pretty focused toward the veterans because obviously that's important to me and a lot of other people. That's why these secretive service shout-outs often have to do with veterans. So I appreciate Bob's service. He's been in one before. Forgot about that shit. But so this podcast was a lot of fun. It gets pretty deep. And we get into some topics and some conversations and some opinions that some people are probably going to get fucking butthurt about, just straight up. And that's the way it is. But, if you can't handle an open conversation, then KiLLs a podcast ain't for you. I don't know what to fucking tell you, because it's just going to keep going this way. So without any further delay or quarantine, let's get to this shit.
You were born primal. You were born primal.
What the fuck's up, y'all? Modern Assassin. Firing off from the farm here in the Free State. Got a friend in the studio ready to record. This guy is a veteran, a hunting buddy, a guy I respect, and a guy I've actually given a shout out before on the secretive service shout out. He's done his time in the Army, still gives back. My buddy, Bob Dubuque, kills it. What's going on, buddy?
What's going
Welcome.
on?
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. Now that we've had a little time talking on the mic and the headset just for the bullshit, and we'll see if it flows a little easier. So, welcome, dude. Like I said, this is your first time here visiting me out at my place. I've been fortunate enough to visit yours before. Dude, I love that log cabin that you built. Like, yeah, that place is badass. I know you kind of said it was a childhood dream.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of I don't know. If you grew up playing outside, I think that's a lot of people's childhood dream.
If you grew up with Lincoln Logs, remember those?
Right? Hell yeah.
Before there was Legos. Well, I guess Legos might have been around.
Yeah, but Lincoln Logs were, they were real deal. They were wood. That's why they were fun. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's fucking awesome. The brick has been all over you. Won't leave you alone because you've got two real beasts.
Yep. Been adopting Rottweilers for a couple years, 20 years actually. So
20 years.
The poor guys, they don't seem to live too long. They get cancer quick.
Yeah.
So we're kind of like foster parents in that respect.
Yeah, and that is just a common thing with bigger breeds too. You know what I mean? And they are pretty fucking big, right?
Well, they're about 130 pounds. I had one before who was 170. He was a monster.
Jesus.
But they're usually gentle. They're pretty gentle.
Yeah.
I mean, but you think about it, that's double brick.
Yeah.
It's funny, dude. Everyone thinks he is bigger than he is.
I know. When I come in, I can't believe he's 5 years old, 6 years old.
He just turned 4.
Right.
Yeah, he turned 4 brick Valentine on Valentine's Day. But yeah, everyone thinks he's bigger because like he's a jacked little shit. Right. And he's got that short hair, so he just like he looks like a beast in his pictures. And then you see him, you're like, damn, I'm like, I told you he's pretty small. He goes between like 60, 65 pounds. Right. And I specifically looked for a smaller lab because I had a lab that got up to like 115, 120. Dude, you're taking another fucking human being around at that point. Like you want to get in a canoe. Well, that's just an uncoordinated human being now. Getting in and out of a truck, like you better have another seat. You ain't just like sticking them in somewhere, you know? So, like he swims up to the side of the boat. I just grab his, the back of his vest and swing him in like I'm picking up a suitcase. Right. Like, yeah, having a little dog is, well, I also have a fairly small place, but a big farm for him to run around, which is cool. And groundhogs obviously got to be out because all he is doing lately is laying up here by the corner of the barns. Yeah. And he just lays up there and he just sniffs the air coming across the fields and just lays there. And that's what he does when he's looking for groundhogs. And every time we get home now, he immediately jumps out of the truck and runs back to the back sheds in the barn because they've probably started another hole back there this year. Last year he only got a couple. The year before that, I think he got 15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just from right here, not like taking him out groundhog hunting, him just going and roaming the farm and fucking him up and bringing him back like, look what I got. You know what I mean? He's a maniac, dude.
That's cool.
What about your dogs? They chase animals or they
neighbors, dogs, people,
anything not welcome. Got it. But you got about 50 acres, correct?
Yep, 50 acres. Yep.
Good deal. And you do have wildlife there.
Yeah, it's surrounded by another 200 acres. We got some nice bucks and some foxes, and even seen a coyote here and there. Shot at one and missed. A couple turkeys here and there. Wood ducks on the side. There's a little beaver pond. So.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. So you have, I mean, not only the kind of home, the dream home log cabin, but it's in the ideal place too.
Man, I'm living a charmed life. Got an easy job and a beautiful woman.
There you go. Yeah, and cold beer right here too. Cheers. Yeah, man. So you're a veteran.
I am.
And you were with the Army.
Correct.
For how long and when?
Went in at 17. I guess I was 1986 or so. Was stationed with 101st Airborne out in Kentucky.
Damn, you make me feel like a youngin'. If you went in, I mean, you look like you're my age. You're a sharp motherfucker, dude. Go ahead, continue.
After that, I went to Korea with the 2nd Infantry, hung around up there in the on the DMZ, which was kind of intense at the time. This is in the infantry, so I didn't really have any skills when I got out. But anyway, got out, did another 6-7 years in reserves. Got called up for Desert Storm. My friends gave me this big party. You're going to die. Nice knowing you. Things like that. And then our unit was on the tarmac, and we never took off. And the damn war was over before we got a chance. And then
wow. Okay.
Then I did a couple years here with the Maryland Guard, and I was thinking, what the fuck? I'm a pharmacist. I'm going to get shot as a sergeant for nothing, pennies. And I was like, I don't know. You want to serve, you want to do it, but you're like getting older. I was 30 something at the time. I was like, just get out and just be what they call inactive ready reserve.
Well, and in a way, you are still serving, in my opinion.
Thanks. Yeah, work for the VA. I work with veterans every day, and we have some. In fact, our hospital is one of the premier areas for detox.
Okay.
And so we do psych and detox wards. So a lot of these guys will come in, and then some are PTSD, some are from combat or things like that, or some are just the issues they have, anything of anxiety and all. And then on the other side, we have heroin addiction, of course, is huge.
Now, is a lot of that from the residual opiate addictions. I mean, if you think about it, it is an opiate that's a hell of a lot cheaper that you can go buy from a guy on the corner versus having to go to a pharmacist like yourself.
Yeah, that's the usual progression. They start out on pain pills. Now, I'm going to clarify that in a second, but they start on pain pills, opiates, Oxycontins, Percocets, like that. And then why pay $60 a tablet, whatever they're getting on the street, if you can buy a bag of heroin for, I don't know what it is, $5, $10, I'm not sure. But,
but next to nothing compared.
Yeah, and that's where it leads, and then it's just a terrible cycle. And of course, everything that comes with addiction, the legal issues, the illness itself, and it's just a spiral and depression and things like that. So when they do come to us, they're in tough, rough shape.
Yeah. Like I said, in my opinion, that is most certainly a way to still serve, because that is. Mental health has been ignored for so long. You think about, for the most part, you think about guys coming back from the war or any war, just military in general. You're thinking physical, how they were injured.
Right.
And even guys that come back 100% physically healthy, most of them usually have some type of a mental issue, whether they know it or not, subconscious. I mean, when you are in that lifestyle as a human being, you have to adapt to extreme situations constantly that most humans are not meant to handle. And a lot of people just subconsciously don't even know. And it's kind of just been ignored so long, like, oh, well, he doesn't have a leg blown off, he's fine. And it seems that it's come, and I actually spoke about this a little bit on another podcast, it seems more and more that it's veterans like yourself that are the ones that are helping these other veterans coming back, helping them to understand their PTSD or whatever other issues they may have, whether they even realize it or not, and helping them decompress in a way. And a lot of it is done through the VA and stuff, but it seems like more and more there's also a lot of other outside organizations that aren't maybe government or military, right, but are the members of the military that are helping others out.
Absolutely, sure. Well, they estimate that at least 22 veterans die each day of suicide, and that's just craziness.
It is. It's absolutely insane. I mean,
I hate to say it, but we've probably talked about it, but a celebrity dies or kills himself, and it's front page news for weeks on end. But a service member dies or something happens, and it's not even a front page.
Here's the thing that pisses me off the most about that. I 100% understand that, and I agree with that. Like I do most things, I look at it at a little deeper level. And the way I look at that is, I'm just going to say it because it was the most recent, Kobe Bryant. You have so many people making these posts and everything, talking about how big of an impact he was on their life and how much he meant and this, and like how attached they were to him. And for the most part, most of them really didn't give a fuck.
Right.
He really didn't influence their life. He really didn't have a big impact on them, but it was a social thing to do and like to sound like, oh, well, I'm affected. But they really do know some of these veterans. They really did grow up with them in their neighborhood. Right. They really did have them in their life. They really were directly impacted by some of these veterans that are ignored. And that is what pisses me off even more about, oh, well, he's a celebrity. It's like you're acting like he was someone to you when you're ignoring the people right next to you that are someone to you that you can help.
Right.
And that's what gets me most fired up about the whole thing in the first place. It's just fucking ignorant. Man, I am getting fired up. Take a sip of my beer here. Calm down.
Well, it's true. And a lot of these guys, and I feel veterans and people who are going into the service have that drive. They have that maybe need for adventure. They have to take care of. And so I think part of the problem when veterans get out is reentering society, and you maybe only qualify for an office job or stacking shelves or something like that at the time. When you get out, you don't have that
Because,
anymore.
like you said, you didn't have that skill set when
Right.
you went directly into the military as a teenager, as early as you could go in. Right.
Yeah, and I also think that just from experience with my cousins who've gone through the military experience lately with boot camp and all, it's not the same. And I don't want to belittle anyone's service. It's not what I'm trying to say, but I think the calling isn't the same. The standards aren't the same as when guys probably my age went
They're
through.
most certainly not.
And
I actually just spoke about this on, not to reference again, but another podcast. I had my friend Scott Ziegler. He and some other guys are with the Detroit Fire Department.
Caught that.
And one of the things we were speaking of is how standards are being lowered, and part of it is because social pressure to allow these other people in, but part of it too is because they don't have enough people entering on their own will that are capable of passing these standards, that they need to lower the standards just to keep the numbers up, which is pretty sad. And it was one of the things I said to him that I thought, putting the videos up that, if you listen to the podcast, did you get to see it?
I did.
Okay, so you got to see some of the fires and the crazy shit that he's doing to save people. And
right, if you can't do this,
I can see a young man, an adrenaline junkie, the type of guy that may look at the military as a career, look at that as a career too. And I told him, I said, I think things like this will help inspire people to hopefully want to look at the fire department as a career, look at the military as a career. Because especially in now, this generation, if you ain't seeing it and it ain't flashy and it ain't fast, it's going past your attention and it's never given another thought.
right.
And and of course the military knows that with their promotional videos and tactics and all too, but you also need real shit, like relative. You know what I mean? So I really liked what those guys are doing.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'd rather be in a firefight than fight a fire. Fuck that.
It's a close mentality, and I think I said that probably the only thing more intense would be combat. So shit, because you could be in a firefight surrounded by a fire. You never know.
Right. It's true.
But you said shit got pretty intense while you were.
The North Koreans are pretty serious people. We'd walk over to the DMZ and we'd flip them off, and they just stand there stoically. And but it was just fun. It was a neat experience to be over there and the culture and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If you're a kid, 18, 19, and you're over, especially Korea, but it's just the wine and women and the cowboy lifestyle. You're up on the DMZ, you're back in town,
and they probably look at you like an American cowboy, huh? That may be, that's probably their view of us. It's funny. Someone was just saying, I think the world views Americans as Americans view Texans. Like what your idea of a Texan is what the world's view of the basic American is.
I believe it. Right.
It's probably a pretty accurate equivalence right there. But so taking it from the VA and clinical side and being a pharmacist, you've also expanded even further, it seems.
That's right.
To, some may call it controversial, some call it new. It's most certainly new. But being from the VA and now coming to a medical marijuana dispensary, which you are the clinical director, correct?
Correct.
Okay. How does that all transfer? How does that go down? What has your experience with soldiers? How has that influenced your views on it? How is maybe some of your own problems that you've had from the military How is all this transferred and made you maybe look at the medical marijuana side of this?
So if you grew up in the Reagan era, just say no. Who are you going to call? Just right.
Yep.
But
and the DARE program.
That's right. That's right. All those programs that were so anti-drug. So of course marijuana was in that.
Absolutely.
But you fast forward.
It was the head of it.
Right. Absolutely. And there are some theories about how it was all based on prejudice and racial things, and then I think some of it's kind of true. But fast forward to today, and everybody, it goes back 5,000 years. This has been a proven safe pharmaceutical. It's been eaten. It's been smoked.
A lot of the world never stopped using it
exactly
like we did. But
right,
yes,
right.
Continue.
So the demonization went and so forth in the drug wars. And anyway, fast forward to today, and these guys were, and you would hear anecdotal, it helped me with anxiety, helped me with PTSD, things like that. So you had to take at least a thought of it. And I got to tell you, I was really skeptical growing up in that era.
Absolutely.
My dad, everybody, and my dad in Vietnam was, trying things over there, Thai and all that stuff. But fast forward to today, and I really started thinking about, what all these guys were saying, what I was reading, and it was, emerging, of course, 2016 was when we launched here in Maryland, I believe.
And being a pharmacist, you have a level of understanding when you're reading these documents and papers to literally a different degree.
Yeah, I can see that. When we talk about the receptors and the endocannabinoid system and how it all ties in with your hormones and your adrenaline and things that sympathetic versus parasympathetic, and so it all ties in.
Complete body
does
functions.
give it
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but then you realize you don't really know shit. And we don't have studies. As a pharmacist, you're a scientist. Well, show me the studies, show me the data. Show me where the clinical was at. So, but I started getting interest in it. A lot of these guys, and every veteran will tell you who's part of the VA system, I'm over medicated. I mean, they just, you got to, seizures are going to give you this medication, nightmares give you this, gets to sleep, just to wake up, and it's just a handful of pills. And it's not anyone's fault. This is the medical practice that was taught to them. That's how
that has been the standard and staple for a long time.
Right. And it's worked. But some of these guys would come in and say, look, I was able to get off my psych meds using this cannabis. Well, and then, growing up, I think if we were to buy cannabis, down the street, you had no idea what it was. It was in a baggie, and you didn't know the quality of it, or even though he didn't care what it was, it just did the work, did the job. So, but fast forward to today, and there's hundreds of cannabis, strains, and like we say in pharmacy, well, there's a pill for that. Well, there's a weed for that, and I really got into it a lot stronger. The requirement came down from the Cannabis Commission that they needed a clinical director at each dispensary, and I jumped on that. And I've been with Farm Kent in Elkton, which I'm allowed to say, I heard. And they've been there for a couple of years, and I think we take good care of people.
Very cool.
A lot of the dispensaries around here will offer a 22% discount for veterans.
That is amazing. Now, what is the VA's take on it? How is it that the government views this and handles this, and what do they do with a veteran that is maybe receiving federal money?
Right.
How do they look at this and view this?
At first, they fought it. It was a real issue. And then I guess last year we got a VA directive that came down, a letter that said you are not to discourage or turn away or discontinue medications or anything on any veteran using cannabis. Because, forget, it's still illegal at the federal level. So they didn't really want to the VA didn't really want to get involved in too heavily on it. But they wanted, and it's a fine line because I think most people in the VA realize it's helpful.
And it's also the age of information where, right. I mean, maybe you can attest to this. I would think more people most the patients that come to you now for whatever it is, whether it be cannabis or otherwise, they're probably more educated about what is going on with themselves and their symptoms when they come in
Right.
versus before, because now you can talk to more people. You can join a group. They're easy to find online or Facebook or something. It's easier to research and question and answer and talk to people. So I would think people come in a little bit more educated because of that to what they might be facing.
That's right. Right. There's so much information on the internet now, and heck, there are sites like Leafly and Mary Jane.
So yeah, again, it's hard for the federal government to, I guess, discourage it when the information is becoming so freely available for, hey, this may be helping me.
Right.
And guys that need help, I mean, a lot of them, I don't want to say they are desperate, but some of them do get desperate. But for the most part, when you have something going on you need alleviated, you're going to try something to help that works.
Right.
I mean, even if people say it may not be an idea, some of you will get to the point, hey, if it works, I'm going to try it.
Right.
So that's really good to hear, actually, that the VA is kind of taking that stance. Like you're not to turn them away. You're not to discourage them if it seems like it's having a positive impact, obviously.
Correct. Right. Right. Like any medication, if you overdo it or abuse it.
It's funny. I used to say, I think everybody should smoke weed. The world would just be a better place. Nope, not at all. My buddy's sister becomes the dumbest fucking human being alive. Like, fucking incomprehensible, doesn't know what she's doing, forgets what she's saying mid-sentence. Like, no, that is a terrible, nope, not everyone should smoke weed. My views on that change, but it can help a lot of people. And it's fucked up that it's a Schedule 1 drug, which Schedule 1 means, correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, Schedule 1 means it has no medicinal value, correct? And therefore, because it was Schedule 1, no medicinal value, marijuana could get no federal funding for research.
Correct.
So was it the state level that started doing their own research on things? Or I mean...
Yeah, I think most of it stemmed from California during the AIDS crisis, and that's where it all began. I want to say in the 90s, 96 or so.
And do you think that was... mostly to help combat the AIDS medications, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And
yeah.
cachexia, or wasting disease.
Okay. Yes. I don't know if you can even answer this question. I don't know if there really is an answer to this question. But I'm curious. That's why I'm asking it. Most medications, pharmaceuticals, they are helping with a symptom, not helping with a cause. Would you agree to that?
Well, it depends. If you're talking about blood pressure, the cause is, let's say, narrowing of the arteries, and the medications reverse that. So that would be the cause.
That would be. Good example. Perfect.
If you're talking
I guess
about,
I was thinking more of addictive.
okay.
The medications that lead to problems and complications, the medications people have a problem getting off or are causing other health medications. I guess more a lot of your psych meds, a lot of the pain pills, things like that. I would think that most of them are more a symptom or a mask than helping the root cause.
That's true, if it's a psychological.
Do you think at all, and again, I don't know that there's an answer to this, do you think at all that the marijuana helps treat the cause as well as the symptom, or do you think it's kind of a better alternative to help with the systems than the pharmaceutical is? And of course, it's all speculative. It's not
Sure.
like there's a cut and dry answer.
Absolutely.
And it all depends on what pharmaceuticals and everything else. But basically speaking, do you think that you can generally find a strain that will help them better than the pharmaceutical?
I think so. when we're talking about addiction, don't forget we're talking about the benzos too, the benzodiazepines.
Yes.
And a lot of guys and girls are prescribed that for anxiety, and it's an endless train. But going back to the original question, I do believe that there's a cannabis strain and program for most patients that will wean them off of their meds. I'm careful not to say that, but I'm careful to say
again, it's all
you know what I mean?
situational. And
Yeah,
it's
sure, of
dependent.
course,
It's
absolutely.
not a cut and dry.
Yeah, and now some people. Now I know a guy who was he moved out to West Virginia, but he was here at Perry Point, and he was a heavy drinker, a terrible alcoholic. He was had a great job at Aberdeen, lost his wife, everything, and then he found cannabis, which
Was he a veteran as well?
he was a veteran.
Okay,
Yeah, he was a
yeah,
Marine veteran.
gotcha.
Yep, and then he found cannabis, and he just was stoned constantly. You know, not medicinal as in like I feel great, medicinal as in like I'm just too fucked up to even function. And he
Gotcha.
stayed that way. And then he moved out to West Virginia. I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a little while, but so there's the other side of the coin. If you're an addictive personality, you just want to get stoned or high or drunk all the time. It's gonna be the first issue.
Again, abuse is abuse of whatever substance it is. Any way you look at it, overuse and abuse is simply just that.
Right.
I asked, but I think I cut you off on. Do you think that it in any way helps the root of the cause more than just the symptom?
Yeah, one of the theories is that the neuroplasticity. You can retrain your brain to regrow these neurons and go from the flight or fight response to a more calm response. So, if the cannabis helps you, would say with a combination of meditation or psych counseling, if it helps you with that, and it's all it's all accompaniment.
It helps the process.
Helps the process, and you can.
But that's what it is.
Relearn
It's the process.
Yeah, part of it is relearning. Get away from those fears and anxieties, and I think it helps the process, ease the patient down the road. Yeah, just like a pain med would during a surgery.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's weird that, like you said, for how many thousands of years and centuries, basically the beginning of man and record, cannabis has been used.
Right.
And then it was lost for so long, at least in our culture. I don't know how much of this is like the actual truth. Everybody has kind of said why marijuana's always been illegal. But are you familiar with William Randolph Hearst?
I have, yes.
Okay, so you've heard the stories that he owned the printing presses, he owned the logging companies, and when hemp came around, and hemp paper is so much, it just basically put it, it's far superior to tree pulp paper. Hemp paper just is, and it's also so much cheaper. Well, when you own all the forests, you own all the logging companies, you own all the equipment, and you own the printing press, the story goes that he basically just started printing papers and articles demonizing weed, and apparently the name marijuana wasn't even an actual name. It was like they gave it a name to make it sound like something new and crazy and give it even more impact.
To actually give it more of a Hispanic sounding name, actually.
Yes, and that was a big part of it too, that they said, that the Mexicans and the illegals were bringing it in, and it was a way to help with border control and everything else. And yeah, there's so many theories behind it, but to me it's still fucking insane that it has taken this long for it to at least become open in a discussion.
Yeah. To this day, I'll be somewhere with the wife, and as I was actually involved with a cannabis company that was trying to get a license in Maryland.
Okay.
So cannabis has been in my life for years now, 4 or 5 years, and I'm out with the wife, and she's sweet, naive, and sometimes. I'll never forget. She's like, "They're over there smoking pot." We've been part of this underground for a while now.
Now it's just become, but I mean, it is becoming more open. It's pretty, like I said, it's pretty insane that it's taking this long. That's like, I've always said, the biggest gateway drug, the DARE program.
Right.
To me, the DARE program was the biggest fucking gateway drug and created more fucking addicts than anything else. I mean, basically, they made marijuana seem like it was even worse than cocaine and heroin and crack. And I mean, I guess opiates were hardly even spoke of in that time because it just wasn't the thing it is now with the pharmaceuticals. But I mean, they basically made it seem like marijuana was like as bad as all of them, if not worse.
Absolutely.
And what is the first thing you're going to encounter as a teenager or whatever else? Usually marijuana. Right. I mean, that's why they labeled it the gateway, because that's what people encountered first. But as an impressionable teenager, and you find out, wait a minute, you mean my buddy's older brother smokes weed? Like, I've always looked up to him.
Right.
You mean he's not like a demon like they say he's going to be? And like, and wait, you mean Uncle Jimmy smokes weed? And, and then you find out and eventually try. And you're like, well, this ain't bad. Well, why the fuck are you going to believe that crack's bad or heroin's bad and addictive and it's going to ruin your life? Heroin, you can try one fucking time and be completely addicted or overdose. You may not even get a second chance to try it.
With today's fentanyl, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, to me, I really feel like the DARE program, like, fucking took things the wrong way.
I got to tell you, while we're talking about this, I'll flat out ask these patients, veterans, and, look, a lot of them from inner city, Baltimore area and things like that, It's like, just tell me, did we do this to you? Did we prescribe opiates for pain, you hurt your back or something, and then it morphed into heroin addiction? 9 times out of 10, no, I was just partying with some friends and someone introduced me to it. And that's just insane. You hit the nail on the head. I'm fucking, who do I blame for this? I don't know, but I see it, and you're like, wow. But I'm thanking for their honesty, of course. But, But again, when you see everyone around you dying,
it's kind of like, how did you not know? Like, there is no reason at this point to say, well, I didn't know any better, or how could you just not be aware?
Right.
I just don't get it.
Yeah. Now, a lot of these guys that I'm dealing with were problems before they went in the military. They had arrest records or drug problems. And not all of them, of course. But a lot of them are in that.
And some of them may be, alcohol or other drug influenced decisions. And, guys that I think through a lot of my own research and time and getting older and more in tune with myself, I think a lot of some of the things I deal with are from my head traumas. I don't even want to count up the number of concussions I've had between skateboarding, snowboarding, fighting, car accidents, and shit. One of the things I've learned from the research is the head traumas and traumas in general and their relation to compulsiveness. And I catch myself in that often. And as well as maybe being impatient or short-tempered, and sometimes I even realize I'm like, this is completely irrational. Like, my logical mind knows I'm being irrational, but I can't help the way that I'm being compulsive or some. And I think that probably leads to a lot of these guys using those drugs. Kind of, may just have a moment of fuck it, and it just the compulsion and instantaneous and whatever. That probably leads to a good bit of it as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
But again, like we were saying, the age of information, how could you?
No, right. Everyone knows somebody who's lost everything or died or overdosed. And, we have Narcan all over the hospital, and it's not uncommon for us to use it in the hospital. You're on the ward. You're on the detox ward, and you overdosed. And these dirtbags that are bringing the shit into the hospital, It's just sick. It's really sick.
I was with a buddy of mine in Ohio, and we pulled up to, I think it was like a little gas station convenience store, and there was a police officer, one that he knew. I believe it was a state boy, actually, Ohio. And he said, "Hey, what's going on?" And the guy just kind of looked at him and shook his head. He had just come from giving a girl a needle of, how's it pronounced, Narcan? Narcan. Okay. Had just shot this girl up with Narcan, saved her. The same exact girl, he did the same thing the day before.
Wow.
Same exact person, damn near the same spot.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane.
In my little country town of Northeast Maryland and Elkton, and they're overwhelmed. It's unbelievable.
I mean, my rival high school was named Heroin High, which is insane. I mean, everyone knows, like, our area off the 95 border through Maryland, in between New York and fucking Miami, like, yeah, everybody that kind of knows about the shit knows, like, around here is kind of a hot spot. I mean, shit, the police station right down the street that you drove by, it doesn't say this is how many drunk driving accidents we had and how many drivers died. Our fucking police station sign says this is how many overdoses we've had. This is how many that have led to death.
Right.
That's how big of an epidemic it is. It's bigger than alcohol.
I wish that they would put, for lack of a better word, infomercials back on, or PSAs, public service announcements. I think they used to do it back when in the day. And
I don't think there's some money in it now. I think that's it. It all comes down to the money. I mean, where are you putting money toward the resources? I mean, you figure Coca-Cola's got a hell of a much bigger bankroll that they're willing to put their commercial than what the VA can actually afford, to put towards something like that. And it's sad.
Not just the VA. I mean, the government.
Yeah. I was just using them as an example. But yeah. And any organization, really. But yeah, just the PSA announcements. I mean, it used to be a very common thing when we were kids. Like, there was always a PSA announcement.
This is your brain on egg.
Back to the dare. All right. This question. This is kind of a controversial topic, and one that I will talk about with some people, and I just have to completely step away from the conversation with others. I'm very curious, in your opinion, being a professional, is addiction a disease?
Well, it's a disease in the definition, right? A disease just like heart disease or something. It's a disease. It's got symptoms. It's got a cause. It's got a cure, in a sense, So it's a disease. Now, I'm more conservative, grew up in the era where you took care of yourself and your family. That came before anything. And, I feel like today's younger people, at least, victimization is all the rage. If you're a victim, you can see yourself. If you see yourself as a victim,
you're paving an easy way.
Absolutely right. Right. So it's a disease, but it's like,
is it more of a disorder? Does it create more of a disorder than it is actually a disease? I think that's the way I've always looked at it.
Right, because when we think disease, we think a medical condition, I think.
Is there any other disease that goes away simply by stopping what you're doing? That's the way I look at a big difference. Like, addiction will go away if you stop using. I mean, AIDS doesn't go away if you stop having sex, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like, it's
well,
But I do think it creates a disorder.
Yeah,
absolutely. But would you agree that that's a better classification of disorder than disease?
Yeah. Because I think we have a tendency to think of a disease as a strictly medical, right? A medical problem,
and using the victimization card,
right? But yeah, so to say it's a disorder, yeah, I believe it. But goddamn, so much is just self-inflicted. It's sad. It just drives you nuts. I have these two brothers, both veterans, and they found him with a needle in his arm, passed out in his car. And luckily, I just saw him yesterday, and he is a whole different person. He's on Suboxone. And if you don't know what it is, Suboxone is like a methadone in that respect. It just keeps the addiction at bay, but it's feeding you small amounts of opiate.
So it's keeping your opiate receptors from going crazy, screaming to get you into the addiction.
Right. And, at some point you can taper it off. A lot of these guys never do.
I've seen that.
But anyway, he's a whole different person. He's like, I don't believe how dumb I was. I don't believe how I'm embarrassed to know that, you saw me for all these years like this young kid, 28 maybe. And he says, I was so stupid. I can't believe what I did to get into this. And I can't believe how I'm stuck with this now. So anybody listening out there, if you know somebody or, young people in your family, young brothers and sisters, and just, keep an eye on them, because this is something just doesn't seem to get away from, it gets away from you. You never come back from it. You're always hooked to it, and somehow, you'll always be in the methadone. You'll always be in the Suboxones. Very rarely, opiates are very, what's the word? It sneaks up on you, little by little, you don't know.
You kind of don't realize you're becoming addicted.
Yeah, I can't think of the word right now, but
especially with
insidious.
Someone with a supply. It's not until someone's without that they realize that they need it.
Right.
I mean, I had told you earlier, I quit smoking cigarettes about 10 years ago. But when I was addicted to smoking cigarettes, there was no time I wanted a cigarette more than when I just smoked the last one in my pack.
Right.
Why? Because now I don't have one. Now don't just know they're here when I need it. Now I have to think about, well, where am I going to get one next? Who can I bum one from? When can I leave work to go grab a pack? And it's all thoughts that are consuming toward that addiction.
Right.
The way I was actually able to quit was I bought a brand new pack and I set it right there in the cup holder in my truck. If I need a cigarette that bad, they're right there. I don't need one that bad.
Right.
But I knew if I didn't have any, well, where could I bum one if I just wanted one drag? Or who's going to be at this next job site that might have a cigarette? And those are just all thoughts about the thing you're trying to get away from.
And the tough part is you could set that heroin aside and not do it for a long time. And then all of a sudden, you have that craving and you do it. Well, that was back when you could take that dose. And that's why these poor people overdose.
Well, and like you said, now so much is cut with fentanyl that it's a completely new animal. So speaking of, you see a lot of the self-induced. I think to some degree, all of us have self-induced detrimental behaviors.
Right.
To one degree or another.
Sure.
And how bad they affect your life or others, that's all depending. Being that that's a common factor and something that kind of all of us face, maybe I'm asking you to be more of a psychologist than a pharmacist at the moment, but what is something that you what's something anecdotal that you maybe look at or recommend, or something that's not from the pharmaceutical side but to help people with these self-induced behaviors? Like you said, this guy, he snapped out of it on his own. He realized, holy shit, I've been an idiot. And it just sounds like it took him a kick in the balls as a wake up. But a lot of people, even simple things like, I'm trying to lose weight, but damn, do I want a couple bites of that ice cream? And it's like, if you eat that ice cream, you just negated your whole workout.
Right.
But it's hard to get away from that self-induced behavior and detrimental behaviors.
I've always thought these guys would come into the detox unit, and they'd be in a bed with IVs hooked up and, on their last breath. I always thought if you could take a picture of them on their phone and make that their screensaver, and they looked at that every day, every morning, not as what a failure I was, but how I am today.
Yeah.
It's kind of you couldn't do it for HIPAA reasons, things like that. But I always thought if you could see yourself in the worst possible, now, hey, we all have issues. We all go through
because they forget those parts.
Yeah,
For the most part, they're not gonna remember with clarity what it was like at that time.
right.
And I think you're right. Maybe seeing themselves that probably have quite an impact.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's easy for us to say, I guess.
Yeah.
We're not there, and I think some people just have addictive personalities, no matter if it's alcohol or whatever.
100% true.
And they just lean toward that. But I just feel for these guys who think, and ladies who think they can handle it. Just this once, a couple times with my friends or something. The opiates are really bad news. They just sneak up on you, and it's just tough.
Well, and like we kind of touched on earlier, talking about the cannabis, you go to the street, it's the Wild West. You don't know exactly what strain you're getting. You don't know what grade you're getting. You don't know how well it was grown, if it was grown with chemicals or has pesticides on it. You don't know any of that shit. And you don't know what the, results of consumption of that is going to be, because you don't know what's in it. It's not at a controlled level. And it's the same with the opiates. I mean, when you are getting that prescription and going to a pharmacist,
right,
you know what you are getting and what the result is going to be.
The dose you can handle.
Exactly. Right. And I mean, and not even the dose could be different because you don't know the strength of what is in that dose. You know what I mean? So you could take the same size dose and it be completely different as far as how much substance is actually contained in it.
Absolutely right.
How do we... This is a loaded question. Again, obviously, you can't really have an answer. How do we get more people to pay attention to these veterans? How do we get more people to understand how important the reacclimation and the care is of our men and women that are coming back?
Right. That's a good question. So a lot of organizations and people are starting to do that. They're getting there and another thing that helps is we're starting to get a lot of veterans in Congress, in the House of Delegates.
Okay.
And so we're starting to get more veterans in Congress, in politics, and saying, and they're younger and they're thinking, and we can relate and say, okay, here I was. So that helps put it front and center. We have some great veterans, Luttrell and these guys that are getting up there and just speaking for veterans, things like that. Some great groups, disabled American veterans, Wounded Warriors. These other projects like that.
We're actually taking out some Wounded Warrior guys this year on the power plant to fish, and we're offering a veteran discount. It's like, I don't know, when's it going to be the cool thing?
Right.
Can you imagine like what the world would be like if it was the cool thing to post on your Facebook of doing something good for a veteran? Can you imagine like how quickly the world would change? And it's funny, you see people on social media now like giving away giant tips or like giving people, oh, I'm going to go just give this guy $200 and whatever and make his day and bless this guy. And you're doing that shit for the views. You're not doing it for the good of giving it away. But
you would post it.
But it's like how... If I'm in a restaurant, if I see a veteran, I offer to buy their meal.
Right.
Because I do care. I remember sitting in my comfortable bedroom in college and watching the second plane hit the tower. And I remember being in that same comfortable spot a month later. And I know men and women that were not anymore.
Yeah.
I know men and women
Absolutely.
that were no longer in their college dorm room or in their bedroom. And they are now in a fucking desert because I'm still at college.
Right.
And I will never forget that. And I don't take that lightly.
Right.
But yeah, it's just,
When I was a kid, 7 years old, who knows, 5, 7. I remember my dad. Now, my dad served 2 tours in Vietnam, and he was wounded twice. And of course, that kind of stuff sticks with you.
it does.
And I remember him waking up screaming, and the nightmares, and the irritability, and the, hyper vigilance, and that went on for years. But he did shake it on his own. But he did drink a little here and there, so there were a lot of things going on in our lives, but it does impact you, and does. How do we get it out there? It's the media, right? The news media. I'll give a shout out to Fox News. I think they're great. You got Pete Hegseth, who's a veteran on the morning shows on Fox and Friends. So they do try to keep veterans in front and center, and I really appreciate that. And I think it's almost, I don't know if we can talk politics, but during the Obama era, it was a shame. Look at the Bo Bergdahls and the shitheads that they brought back.
It was a recreational, supported and accepted to recreational harass military members.
Oh, absolutely. It was crazy.
Which is fucking disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, this woman accosted my cousin at a gas station once. He was in uniform. It's sickening, and I could see when my dad, the only thing my dad ever did say about negatively about the country coming back in the 60s from Vietnam, the baby killer, the harassments and things like that. He never quite got his due. He didn't want a thank you. He just wanted to live his life,
Yeah.
And it was sickening. And I see that again in the Occupy types and
Do you think growing up with that is part of what led you in the direction you ended up taking, not only with being in the military, but then with the VA and helping individuals? That helping individuals obviously helps families.
Right, yeah. Now,
and communities.
My grandfather was in World War II in the Japanese theater, and so it seemed like just about everybody in my family served. It was just, I want to say expected, but it was part of, growing up and being a man and role models and things like that.
Almost feel like it's part of your legacy.
Yeah. So it was always going to be.
We talked about that too with the firefighters. And
right.
Again, it's a strong brotherhood of a commonality of shared struggle. And
embrace the suck. It's
embrace the suck. Yeah. And it really do, relate the two of them together a lot. Like, the services. That's why, in my secretive service shout out, I'm not trying to do just military or veterans, but people that do a service that most people run away from.
Right.
They're the ones there to help you.
Exactly.
That's what I'm trying to get to. But
yeah.
So yeah, I could see that kind of being an influence of what you experienced with your dad growing up and the troubles he faced, and especially with I guess the lack of help from the VA at that point.
Absolutely. My dad he was in Walter Reed for a while because he had to be put back together, and but he would never go to a VA hospital after that. And I don't know the care he got there, but VA in general was a dirty word to him. And a lot of veterans, of course, a lot of veterans had a horrible homecoming and had a bitter taste against the United States, really. They were ill-equipped. They were, not allowed to pursue or attack the enemy when they had the chance, things like that. And so they didn't have a great view of the United States, the government, and things like that. But I can tell you today, and I'm really proud to say this, especially for the Perry Point here, the VA Perry Point, I think we do an outstanding job, and I'm really proud of it. And in the last few years, one of the things that Trump enacted was not just Trump, of course, but enacted this policy where we could fire individuals in the VA that weren't up to standard. And I think that was part of the problem for a long time.
It's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, it still goes on in the government. We know that. But yeah, so we start to get rid of some of these career slackers, as we call them. And I think that helped. And I think, when you come into the VA, everyone's attentive and they want to help. And will help direct you and get you the care you need. So I'm really proud of it. So I'd got to give Shulkin and those secretaries the kudos, because they really have turned it around. Even in the time I've been there, 12 years.
With the times changing, like you said, getting some of these old slackers and just career riders and everything out, getting the age of information, getting all these new studies and everything. There's several types of, I hate to say alternative medication, but I guess alternative treatment. Let me put it that way. Does the VA support and recommend things like that more, that are more lifestyle changes and things like that to help one's quality of life, besides just come in, let's take your little diagnosis. Okay, here's your medication. I'll see you again in 3 months. Have a good one.
Yes. In fact, as a veteran myself.
Glad to hear that.
Absolutely. As a veteran myself, I was, I was really glad to see this. In fact, we are trying to address the whole person, the spirit, the not just the body, and bring it all together. We have anything you can think of now. I think the VA has a department for yoga. What's it called when they pierce you with needles?
Acupuncture.
Acupuncture, right.
Which I am actually a believer in. I tore 5 discs in my back, and I was against taking opiates because I've seen people become addicted to opiates, and the condition I was in, I knew I would have to put myself basically a comatose zombie to not be in pain. So I refused taking pain pills, and acupuncture was actually one of the first things that helped alleviate some of my pain.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. We have a few programs now, and I'm really glad to see. In fact, I was involved with it myself, coaching them, a life coach as they call it. We had the same thing in the VA. And where we try to get everything with fitness, medications, exercise, lifestyle change is a big one. And I think there's a generational thing as far as lifestyle as for diet and things like that. As a nation, we're addicted to sugar, and we, a lot of us are very overweight. So we're trying to bring the whole thing into perspective and just hit it from all angles and complete the whole person. And I'm so happy about that. And I was out at a conference in St. Louis a couple years ago where we started this whole thing, and it's rolling. It's rolling along.
That's amazing to hear. And I think a lot of people are going to be glad to hear that. And I'll be honest, I didn't expect that answer. I was kind of thinking you were going to say, and I know you can't speak for the VA as a whole. I was kind of expecting you to say, no, it's kind of just more still the formal, the books and the standard method and everything else. But I mean, like you said, the body, physical, mental, as a whole. Right. I mean, that really is amazing that they're starting to look at treatments more in depth like that. Like Absolutely. That's really big to hear.
Yeah, we do everything, even transgender stuff. We got it all. Everybody. It's inclusive.
2020, motherfuckers.
Right. So, yeah, and I'm really happy about it. And and I got to tell you myself. I mean, I went down to a VA back in the day, and I got an eye roll from the girl at the counter, and I don't think we're about that anymore. I think we're really coming together. And you got to remember, the U.S. Health, the Department of Veterans Affairs is the largest healthcare unity in the United States. A lot of things are forefront, and studies are done with the VA. So
yes,
we have
because they have a large sample group,
right?
Obviously, yeah.
So you have to move and stay with the times, and also it's a business. If the veterans aren't coming to you, they're going to somewhere. They're going to other pharmacies. They're going to other healthcare professionals. But we want to be there. We want to be the ones to provide the best care. And
are most of the care providers at the VA, do they have military service? Is that not necessarily a requirement, but is it kind of like something you hope for? Like,
it's not a requirement,
because no one else can. I mean, here's the thing: I can talk to you as much as I want to. I can talk to as many military guys and girls as I want to. I am never going to know what that's like without me doing it. No matter how many people I ask, no matter how many training simulators I go through.
Right.
I can never understand that the way that you can relate to your patients and who you're talking to and who you're dealing with.
Right. Well, you think of the population. I mean, how many physicians,
veterans become
dentists,
doctors?
right?
Yeah.
And
fair enough.
Not too many, I guess, become pharmacists. So,
yeah.
right. So we have to pull from the best pool. And but you're
Fair
right.
enough,
We do have some
100%.
physicians who are active duty or at least reserves, and they're top notch.
What would you like to see maybe change? Or are you seeing the changes? Are you progressively seeing the changes with the treatment, with the way veterans are treated, as in both their treatment as well as how they're treated in just a person? Like, is there anything that you're looking for to change, or do you really feel good, which it sounds like you do, especially about your facility, about how these changes are being implemented now, the progression?
I do, because I'm seeing them. I'm seeing it work.
You're seeing it.
Yeah, and that's the rewarding part of it.
For sure. I mean, and especially to be part of it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's again, it's just so fucking strange that this is like I guess not a common knowledge topic. Like,
Don't forget, I think only about 2% of the population ever serve in the military.
I believe that. That makes sense. Yet 22 a day
That's the estimate.
from PTSD. Yeah. And like I said, people always act like they're affected by these celebrities and shit, but if they really looked at it, I bet you they know one of those 22 a day personally. And
Right.
it really did affect their life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything that you would like to see implemented that's not being used yet that you think would be beneficial? Is there something you think that you would like to try to add into these programs and treatments and everything else?
With the VA
Yes.
in particular. Yeah. Well, obviously, I would love to see cannabis become part
Okay.
of federally.
Federally,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of it. But I don't believe we'll ever dispense it. It'd be a nightmare as far as pharmacy. And I think the state wouldn't let us because they'll lose that revenue.
They're making enough money. They're not going to let the federal take it away.
But this is just. I hope I don't get crucified for this. I think that some of our programs in the VA are feed into the victim mentality still, and I think these veterans are not put back into a structured environment where right now they're going to classes and doing this other bullshit. But I don't think if you could treat them like they were when they were veterans, where they respected and they gave respect and had to clean up and had to do these little things, instead of going to these classes, how to control your, I don't know what, but.
Do you think the lack of structure once these guys leave the military is partly due to that?
Because a lot of these guys had a problem, not out of the ordinary.
Before they went in.
And when they were, they were stellar.
With discipline
stellar
or organization.
soldiers or sailors. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they get out and they lose that again and they lose that purpose. I think everybody, that could be it. They need purpose. I don't know whether we grow. Maybe we could grow hemp. Maybe we could grow gardens or things like that, it works. I can tell you firsthand, it worked wonders for the prison system in New Jersey. It kept them busy. They had a sense of purpose, and they weren't.
And what's that? Gardening programs along
gardening.
highways and all the
actually,
stuff that they did.
Southern State in Jersey had a dairy farm.
Gotcha.
And they grew corn and some wheat, things like that.
And I mean, if you want to look at a prison for what it's really supposed to be, it's not supposed to be a housing facility. It's supposed to be a rehabilitation facility. And getting guys outside and breathing fresh air and working is good for the mental and physical and just the soul in general as far as it becomes a rehabilitation. One of the things I keeps popping back in my head that you just said a minute ago is about the girl rolling her eyes. Like, I can't even imagine. I understand when these guys come back, they don't necessarily want or expect a parade.
Right.
And people running up to them like they're fucking heroes. And a lot of them I know don't even like that word, hero. Right. But you just want
professionalism,
or even just nothing at all. Just complete equality, like an indifference.
Right.
I just can't fathom like being looked at upon to where you just already a negative connotation, or just someone rolling their eyes at you. I said this on a podcast long ago. A guy that I knew kind of through hunting and bullshitting through social media and all. We were talking, we were bullshitting, and I was talking about how shitty my day was because I was out hunting. It wasn't supposed to rain, but it did, and I didn't have completely waterproof jacket. So I'm getting rained on sitting in the tree. It's windy. It's 10 degrees colder than it's supposed to be, and I'm kind of fucking miserable. And I'm fucking typing a message to this guy on Instagram bitching about it, right? And the only thing I got back was a picture. And it was him in full gear, laying in, I won't even call it a hole, a slight depression that wasn't even big enough for his whole body, and a sandstorm blowing over him. And it's in the middle of the night, and there's so much sand pounding him that the flash of the camera, there was barely enough space for it to make it through the sand to him to see him in the hole.
Right.
And I'm fucking bitching about how cold I was and wet I was, sitting in a comfortable tree stand, now sitting comfortable and dry on my couch. And that was one of the things I will never forget as far as perspective. I'm like, fuck, I am a bitch. I am bitching about this when guys and girls are doing that. Well, so I can do this.
Right. Well, that's why you want to hire a veteran. Right.
There ain't nothing they ain't been through, right? I mean,
I've been there, but I still bitch.
Oh, fuck. Okay, so another question then. I asked you, how do we get people to pay more attention to the VA and all? How do we get a military position looked at as a purpose and a high standing again? Because like you said, especially through the era of Obama, it was the cool thing to do to treat a soldier like shit, right, or like disrespect the uniform, and like
same thing with police.
Yes, absolutely. And it's how do we? I mean, you used to look back, and it was like you saw a man in a uniform, and you respected the uniform because you could respect the man. Do you think it's due to lack of the people we let in? Do you think it's due to what I think it probably is more is the bad is always pointed out, the good's rarely spoken of?
Correct. I do. But, think about this. And I grew up in this little town. I think we had 3,000 for population. And a lot of these guys were from World War II. We had an American Legion next to my grandpa's store. And on Memorial Day, it was a somber time. There was a parade. There was a reading of the names, 21 gun salute. It was a somber, and that is lost on these kids today. And they're indoctrinated, certainly in inner cities, Baltimore and so on. They're indoctrinated to think certain things, and history is lost on them. And so I think that's where it begins, And you didn't disrespect somebody in uniform, because if you didn't get your ass beat by them, you would get your ass beat by your parents, right, your father. Yeah. And I think that's I think there's a lot of fathers and parents missing, not just missing physically, I think that I hate
Well,
to
you're
say
not
it.
allowed to discipline your children
You can't,
properly
right?
anymore.
You
either.
can't, yeah, and you don't need to smack them, but take away their phones or computers, whatever. Oh my God!
I mean, at least tell them what they did is wrong and why. Most people won't even go that far. Most of the things that we've talked about, or I've asked you, or we've brought up, are not necessarily easy or comfortable things to talk about.
Right.
Whether it be from political views, whether it's judgmental standard views, whatever it is, this day and age, if you have something I don't want to hear, if you have something to say I don't want to hear, I can just block you.
Right.
I don't have to hear it. I don't have to see it. I can, at the click of a button on my phone, view videos and everything else that makes me feel good and distract me. And I feel like that is a huge part of why we are not seeing men and women in the military and in these services as well, is because it's so easy to just ignore the bad shit by getting lost down a rabbit hole of YouTube videos of good fluffy bunnies and puppies and shit.
Right.
And you can just ignore and block and disregard the things that are topics that may be tough to talk about or may be controversial.
Sure.
Or someone may have a conflicting opinion upon.
Well, we have safe zones for that.
Wow. Holy fuck. That's real.
This is a true thing.
That's real.
My cousin said they give him this card in basic training. They call it a stress card. If you're stressed and you hold that card up, the drill sergeant or everyone around you has to cease what they're doing. It can't inflict anything on you.
Well, that's good because, I mean, if you're at war, you can pull that out and you won't get shot, right? I mean, isn't that what you're saying?
Well, the part of the problem is if you have a stress card, they're not weeding these people out, right?
Yes, absolutely. And the biggest part of that, it's not that person. It's all the other people that person's actions
Correct.
affect.
Right.
I mean, everyone in the military knows, and again, I haven't been in the military, but spoken to enough people, I think I can at least speak to this, that when you are in the military, you know you have a responsibility for the men and women next to you. And you know the men and women next to you, you need to be able to trust that are going to make the right decisions at those stressful, can't pull out a stress card,
Right.
at those stressful times for everyone's safety and the accomplishment of whatever the task.
Right. Right. Then you get the
It's
Berg
fucking
Boat.
scary.
Berg Bodal. What was the guy's name? Bo Bergdahl. What the hell was his name?
Yeah.
You get the people like that.
Yeah.
The Chelsea Mannings, or you get those kind of people. In like I said, that guy costs lives.
Yes.
So they're not weeding them out, and they're not that they're weak, not that they're bad people, not at all. They're just not fit for. It's not their thing. It's not their gift, not their talent. Go do something else. It's fine. And God bless them. They want to serve. I mean, nothing better than that. We're just not all cut out for it, I guess.
Yeah. No. I mean, that is 100% truth. We are not all cut out for it, and that's why there needs to be a rigorous cut process, which obviously they're cutting down. I wonder if it is just like kind of, I guess, the national view and over influence of male toxicity and masculinity and anything opposition and I mean, not even keeping score in child sports.
Everybody gets a trophy, sure.
Just the fucking pussification.
Right.
We've made it acceptable to be weak.
Right.
And here's the thing. You shouldn't be picked apart or beat up because you're weak. But it doesn't mean that you should have everything that takes strength to get.
Sure.
It's just...
Again, the influence of a father figure. I think that's what's lacking in a lot of the guys,
Which
And look at how many young kids, let's say young boys, they're not interested in hunting or fishing or hanging out or doing what their parents are doing or their fathers doing. Of course, maybe the fathers today aren't doing that. We're not seeing the younger generations too many coming on to hunting and want to sit out and freeze their ass off a duck blind. And I don't want to put him on the spot, but my brother's stepson is 12 years old, and he just, he doesn't want to go outdoors. Wants to stay inside and play games.
Yep. And a lot of people's interactions are only that anymore.
Right.
And then they don't know how to handle social pressures. And I mean, hate to say it, but that's what's creating this fucked up society with school shooters and shit. Is, hey, you mean I can't hit block on you? I have to face you face to face, and now I don't know how to handle it, and I don't know what to do.
Right.
And, I've said this more than once. If you want school shootings to stop, there's only one thing to do, and that is stop creating school shooters.
Right.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's society and children, and lack of parenting, and lack of attention, and lack of positive influence. And, well, he's on his phone and he's nice and quiet, so he's not causing any harm.
Right.
Parenting mentality that is causing these problems.
Absolutely.
And again, to bring it back, it's the same things that are causing these men and women to not have drive for the military, to not have drive to be an EMT or to be a firefighter or a police officer, or these positions that were honorable at a time. I guess that's the best way to put it. It seems like the society has almost, in a way, lost them the honor in those positions.
That's one thing that separates us from the Europeans. God bless them. But, spent some time in Ireland and overseas and things like that. And they love being on the government dole. They don't mind. It's okay. We'll pay a large part of our taxes and just keep taking care of it. That nanny state, they don't mind it. So when they see us here in the United States, even today, of course, the British and the Europeans kind of still probably look down on us and say, they can't get their act together. But in the meantime, they're sinking. But capitalism is the king, and they just don't have the same drive or whatever. But I think it may go back to that. Americans have drive. That's the basic thing we have. We have a drive for justice, a drive for industrial, to drive to invent, and Amazon and things of today and all. I think that's what leads us, and I think most people in most countries are envious of us. But I do feel the feminization, for a lack of a better word, and these people letting their kids choose their gender 7 or 8 years old. That's craziness. It's out of this world.
Yeah.
So I think what you're seeing with the populism in Trump is people come back to their senses, and I think it's going to be a shift away from this bullshit. I really do.
It all seems like common sense. That's what when did common sense and common courtesy become so fucking uncommon?
It's uncommon, correct?
It's absurd. It's uncommon.
Yeah.
And again, maybe I'm speaking about it in that manner, largely from a social media influence, but also from personal experience going out into public. But I think most people can agree that with their personal interactions and their day-to-day, it's not as bad as what it's hyped to be.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, don't forget, media is a business, right? And sensationalism and everything sells. That's what sells. So if you can, get a camera angle of a puddle and say it's flooded everywhere, that blows it up. It's rating. It's all about ratings. It's all about money and advertising and things like that.
Well, perfect example. Take it back to the Obama administration. Has racism ever been
No,
at the height it was.
Dude, it was sick.
Dude, they made it seem like a black man and a white man could not be in the same place together anywhere in the country, that the black guy should be afraid he's going to be attacked, and I should be afraid that I'm going to be attacked. And it was like,
it was all politics for votes, and it's sick.
Go out into public.
Yeah.
And
right.
see what's really happening, and it's not like that.
No.
Like,
and the weird thing is, I would like look at my black friends and go, "Is this real? Is this?
Yeah.
What are you thinking? What the fuck?
Exactly.
We've been friends 30 years.
Like, wait a minute. Is it really like this?
I was uncomfortable. Like, I don't hate you, right? This little town I grew up in, it was about 75 to 80% black, and in the 1800s, it was Jewish immigrants. So my mother's side is Jewish immigrants from Poland. And this whole town, in those towns, you had your own baker, your bank, your butcher, pharmacy, store. Everybody was a little microcosm. And then as they grew older, and it's kind of out in the sticks with South Jersey, and as they got older, they moved away, didn't, repopulate, and didn't grow the economy, local economy. And in the meantime, in the 70s, they put in the projects and in our little town, and then one thing led to another, and then, like I said, by the time I was in grade school, it was mostly black, a few Hispanic, and maybe 6 white people, 6 white families. But you never even thought about racism. You just existed. And it was the same thing when I went in the military course, and you never thought about it. And I'll never forgive the Obama administration and everyone associated with it. They really politicized racism and made it part of, a hateful machine. It was sickening. I said it all the time. I couldn't believe it. And when he got reelected, I was in tears. I said, this is craziness. Because think about 8 years. Say you're a kid, you're 5 years old or 6 years old, and you're 8 years, you're getting indoctrinated into the blacks and whites hate each other. And it's not true.
Racism is taught.
It was, yeah, exactly. And I'll never forget that. I thought it was the end. I really did thought it was the end of this country because it's sick.
I tell you, I wasn't necessarily, I don't mean to turn this into political shit, but whatever. I wasn't necessarily surprised when Obama first got elected. Sure, I thought it was a fucking terrible idea and didn't vote for him, but I wasn't surprised. The idea.
It made sense at the time. He was the right place, right time.
And for the staple in history, the first black man to be elected president, and to be part of that and vote for him, and the steps forward it did, and progression, and I say that with quotations of what people thought it was. I understood all that, and I could get, okay, I get it. When he was reelected, that's when I was like, yeah, our whole election system is just fucking bullshit.
Right.
And I really did think that at this point, I'm like, vote, it doesn't matter who votes or what they vote. It doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
And till Trump got in. And then I was like, holy shit, maybe our election system is real, because I figured 100% Hillary Clinton was good. I mean,
right.
If, I'll just say the Illuminati. If the Illuminati was controlling and all as they wanted and everything was going down, Hillary Clinton would be our president.
Right.
And that was kind of when Trump was elected. I'm like, holy shit, maybe our election system is fucking real.
Right.
Like, but yeah, when Obama was elected for a second term, I was like, nope, it's all false bullshit. Like, there's nobody in their fucking right mind.
What it also did is it just released the true nature of people. I got my brother-in-law went off the rails on the internet and Facebook and said some awful things about my wife and I because we were Trump supporters, and people are losing friends and family over this. This is stupid. And the media and these some of these groups that came out, Nickelback and whoever, I don't know who the fuck knows, but these people that come out in Hollywood and the true colors come through, and they're sickening, this Joy Behars and the Whoopi Goldberg. They're sick. They're absolutely enraged, and then you look at Biden and the way and the way the conservatives have been attacked and physically attacked, and you look at what Biden said the other day, and it's like, they are projecting, as they did in the Obama era, they're projecting violence on your opponents, or opponents, but other side of the aisle, and even in Congress, they're at each other's throats, and it's so sickening. I don't know how we get out of this whole recover.
Education.
It's going to be a generation or two.
What we need is true education. We need people to just stop reading headlines and think they're getting their news from reading a headline on a Facebook page that someone else shared without ever reading the fucking article or having an actual educated opinion for themselves.
Right.
Education, this is all due to ignorance, and ignorance can be cured. Ignorance can be cured with education, and we need just legit education, and we need that education to, again, kind of what the military does. They train an individual to be able to think for themselves and act for themselves according to the situation. They're not creating mindless drone machines like a lot of people think. Right. But that's what our schools are creating. They're not allowed to think for themselves. They're told what their opinions should be on a situation. They're told what their opinions should be in politics and a president. They're not taught to learn and to experience and gain an education and therefore form their own thoughts.
Right. Also,
how do we fix that? I'm not really sure either. But
right.
Basically, we've come to with this podcast, we got a lot of fucking problems, and we need people to start paying attention to what's important and the people that are important, and take care of people over things. And I guess another thing that this kind of relates to another podcast, and I'll leave it, that is personal and real connections mean a lot more and go a lot deeper than an internet image.
Right.
And that's what people live for now, is their internet image. That's what they base their opinions on. That's what they put out for people to view.
Sure.
And it's sad.
Yeah. Like,
well, our beers are starting to run low. We got we got some other things to get to. We got some turkey hunting to talk about because it's getting time. But dude, I really appreciate you coming over. This podcast got pretty deep at points. But these are the real questions I wanted to ask you. Like I said before we started, there's a reason I haven't asked you these prior questions, because I knew talking to you was going to provoke real thought and real questions and real answers. And I think that's how we educate.
Right.
Thought, provocative thought.
That's it. Get involved. Get involved, whether it's in your community with drug addictions or things like that. Get out and put your tell you what drives America? Votes, right? We can vote people in and out of office, and if they're not holding up their end and you believe in what you believe, show up. Just show up and vote, and that's the biggest thing you can do as far as that goes.
Your vote is your voice, and that's the best way to speak up. I think we'll end on that note, unless there's something you want to add in. Is there any specific organizations or anything like that you'd like to just kind of make people aware of, look at, check out?
Yeah, absolutely. There's an organization called freedomhunters.org, and they provide a lot of free hunts and fishing trips, things like that, and they'll accommodate any kind of disabilities, things like that, and it's all free.
Awesome. I'm going to look them up. I'm going to give them a plug on here for sure, and see if we can do some other stuff to help them out. And with that, y'all, this has been another episode of the KiLLs It podcast. This one's been a little bit different. I always say I want this podcast to almost be like a bar conversation. You see a guy wearing a hunting hat. Yeah, you start talking about hunting, but before long, you never know where the conversation's going to go. This shit's real. Want to get down to real topics, real thoughts. Just like I said, provocative thought. Think for your fucking self. Develop your own opinion. And with that, make sure you support your veterans, support your local agencies, those that are helping these people out. Don't forget, pay your homage, pay thanks. Thank you all. Thanks, Bob.
Amen.
Kills it.
A lot of these guys, and every veteran will tell you who's part of the VA system, I'm over medicated, and it's not anyone's fault. This is the this is the medical practice that was taught to them. But fast forward to today, and there's hundreds of cannabis strains, and like we say in pharmacy, well, there's a pill for that. Well, there's a weed for that.